Ever booked a hotel and wondered if that brand name, like, really makes a difference? I mean, location, price, those matter, but does that logo actually mean you're getting a better stay?
It's a question more hotel owners are asking themselves too.
Ah,
You know,
mm-hmm.
that brand partnership, it goes way beyond just
Yes.
looks.
Yeah.
It impacts like how the hotels run, what guests expect, and honestly, the bottom line for both sides.
It's like picking a teammate almost.
Yeah,
Both got to bring something to the table.
exactly.
One thing that really stood out in the research for this deep dive is guest satisfaction. It's
Mhm.
becoming a real bargaining chip for hotels.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we're seeing. Hotels negotiating clauses where the fees they pay to the brand, they're tied to things like NPS, the Net Promoter Score.
Right, right.
Some agreements even use a tiered system, so hitting certain targets means lower fees.
So it's not just like empty promises anymore. The brand's actually got skin in the game now.
Yeah, they do.
That's got to be a pretty big motivator to keep guests happy.
Huge incentive. And for hotel owners, this gives them a level of control they haven't really had before.
Interesting.
They can hold the brand accountable for actually delivering on what they promise.
So, real shift in power dynamics then.
For sure.
How does this actually work in practice?
So it starts with benchmarks.
Okay.
Both sides, they agree on specific targets for guest satisfaction.
Hmm.
This could be scores from surveys after the stay, online reviews, even what people are saying on social media.
Got it.
Then they build in ways to monitor this, regular reporting.
So if those scores start to drop,
Yeah.
it's not just a slap on the wrist for the brand, they actually like lose money.
Exactly. Underperformance, it can mean fee reductions and sometimes even penalties.
Wow.
Not small amounts either.
Mm.
We've seen cases where brands had to cut fees by like 20, 25%.
Ouch.
Yeah, because a hotel wasn't meeting the agreed upon targets for how happy their guests were.
That's got to put pressure on them to, I don't know, step up their game.
It does. But it's not just about punishing them. This trend is pushing brands to invest in ways that benefit everyone.
Like what?
We're seeing more focus on making things run efficiently, better staff training,
Mm-hmm.
even sustainability initiatives,
Yeah.
all to improve the experience for guests.
So the idea is happier guests, more efficient hotels, and brands that actually deliver.
That's the ideal outcome, yeah.
Win-win, potentially.
It could be. But of course, it all depends on how these agreements are set up and how they're actually carried out.
Right, right.
There's got to be some intense negotiating going on behind the scenes.
I bet if I were a hotel owner, I'd be making sure those benchmarks are realistic. You
Yeah.
don't want to be penalized for things you can't control.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where the specifics really matter.
Okay.
Things like how often are they measuring these scores? What outside factors are they considering? How do they handle disagreements? It's not as simple as just picking a number.
So not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Definitely not. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of strategy, a lot of nuance to make these partnerships work.
Right. It's fascinating, though, this whole trend, because it feels like a bigger shift in the industry is happening.
It is. For a long time, brands could coast on their name, their marketing, but now
They got to actually deliver.
they're being held accountable for the actual guest experience.
It's like the power dynamic is flipping. Guests aren't just passive anymore.
Right.
Their feedback, it has real weight.
Huge weight. And that brings up a big question.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the traveler?
Mm-hmm.
How do you leverage this shift to make sure you're getting the best hotel experience?
That's a good one.
That's what we'll dig into in the next part
Yeah.
of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about this like power shift between hotels and brands, but how does this actually play out, like in the real world?
Right.
Are there examples of this actually working?
Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the sources we looked at, it had this case study, a hotel owner. They negotiated this clause.
Hmm.
Basically, if their NPS score,
Yeah.
that guest satisfaction thing, if it dropped below a certain point, the brand's fees would be cut by 15%.
Whoa, that's a pretty big chunk.
It is. It's a real incentive for the brand to pay attention to what guests are saying.
Yeah,
Did it work? Yeah, it did.
really?
The hotel scores, they went up significantly after they put this clause in place. And what's cool is the improvements, they weren't just surface level.
Yeah.
The brand actually put money into upgrading the hotel, did more staff training, even started doing some sustainability things.
So real changes, not just like putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
Exactly. It was about making things better for the long haul. And this isn't just one case. We're seeing this kind of thing happen more and more.
Mm.
Some brands are even like tying executive bonuses to guest satisfaction scores.
Wow. So it's not just about individual hotels anymore.
Nope, it's becoming part of the brand's whole strategy.
So like baked into their DNA almost.
Yeah, they're realizing a happy guest is more likely to come back to tell their friends, and that's good for business in the long run.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What happens, though, if a hotel just keeps underperforming? Like, what if
Mhm.
they try to improve, but it just doesn't work? Do brands ever just walk away?
That's a great question. And it shows how complex these agreements can be. Sometimes, yeah, the agreement might say they can end the partnership if things don't improve.
So the stakes are high then.
They are.
Yeah.
It's not just about tweaking a few things. It's about a real commitment to quality from both sides.
Both sides got to pull their weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember these negotiations, they can get pretty detailed.
Right.
It's not just about picking a number for the satisfaction score.
Yeah.
There's a lot to figure out, like how often do you measure it?
Yeah.
What things outside the hotel's control do you consider? How do you handle disagreements?
That's a fine print.
Lots of it. But the goal is to create a system where everyone's working together to give the guests the best experience possible.
It's about more than just the contract.
It is. It's about a partnership built on trust.
Got it. Got it. So this all comes back to the guest, right?
It does. The traveler, they're not just along for the ride anymore.
They have a voice.
They do. Their feedback, their opinions, it matters.
It actually shapes how these brands do business.
It really does. It's a big shift, isn't it? From passive consumer to like active participant.
Huge shift.
Your experiences, good A&D, bad, they can change the whole industry.
So how do we, as travelers, how do we use this power? What should we be looking at when we book a hotel, knowing that our feedback actually matters this much?
That's the key question, isn't it? And it brings up some important things to think about. First of all, be informed.
Okay.
Don't just go by the fancy ads or the brand name. Do some digging. Look up the hotel's satisfaction scores. Read what other people have said. Get a sense of what the brand is really about.
Do your homework.
Exactly. Don't assume that a big name automatically means a great stay.
And then don't be shy about sharing your feedback, right?
That's huge. Tell them when you have a good experience, let them know what they did right.
Right, right.
But just as important, when something goes wrong, don't just let it slide.
Speak up.
Yes. Use those feedback channels, online reviews, social media, whatever works.
Make your voice heard.
But it's not just about complaining. It's about giving feedback that helps them improve.
Okay.
Be specific. Tell them what went wrong, how it affected you, what you would have liked to see happen instead.
Give details, not just, this place sucked.
Right. Give them something to work with.
Yeah.
And remember, your feedback, it becomes part of a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Hotels and brands, they use this stuff to make decisions about everything.
Got it.
So all our individual experiences, when we share them in a way that makes sense, they can actually make the whole industry better.
Pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not just about one hotel or one brand anymore. It's about giving travelers a real say in what the future of travel looks like.
Wow. So this is all super insightful, but I'm thinking for those of us on the other side, the hotel owners,
Yeah.
how do we actually handle these negotiations with brands? What are the key things to keep in mind? I think that's where we need to go next.
Yeah.
So for those hotel owners listening in, let's get practical. How do you actually negotiate these guest satisfaction clauses? What are the key things to keep in mind to make sure everyone wins?
First thing, you got to be prepared, like really prepared.
Okay.
You can't just walk in there winging it. You need to know how you're doing right now on guest satisfaction.
Got it.
So data, you got to have the numbers on your NPS, your GSI, whatever the brand cares about.
Data is king.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The more you have, the better your position is. You're showing them, look, I'm serious about this and I know where we stand.
So it's like showing up with your homework done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of homework, know what the brand is measuring.
Uh-huh.
How do they calculate their scores? What affects those scores? What's good, what's bad compared to other hotels? This way, you're both on the same page.
Makes sense. So what else should hotel owners be thinking about in these negotiations?
You got to be super clear about what you want. What scores are you aiming for? What level of performance are you confident you can hit? And what should happen if you don't hit it? How much should the fees go down? Don't be afraid to push back a little. Make your case.
Yeah, it's a negotiation. Both sides got to get something out of it.
Exactly. And it can get intense when you're talking about money.
Oh, for sure. But it's more than just hammering out a contract.
It is.
Yeah.
This is about building a relationship long term.
Yeah.
It's got to be based on trust, both sides being honest with each other and working towards the same goal. Happy guests.
Finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, where everyone feels good about the deal and they're all pulling in the same direction. And it's not just a one-time thing. This is ongoing.
Right.
Keep checking your performance, talk to the brand, be willing to adjust things if you need to.
So it's like a living, breathing thing, this
Oh.
partnership.
It is. It's got to evolve as the industry changes, as what guests want changes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's not just about the numbers.
No, it's not guest satisfaction. It's not just a box to check off.
Right.
It's the heart of what makes a hotel successful.
It's why people come back.
It is. So to everyone listening, whether you're a hotel owner or just someone who loves to travel,
Yeah.
remember this. We have the power to shape the future of this industry.
It's in our hands.
It is by staying informed, by sharing our feedback, good and bad, in a way that's constructive, we can push for better and better experiences.
Make every hotel stay a great one.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have fascinating stuff. Thanks for breaking it all down.
My pleasure.
To all our listeners, until next time, happy travels.